My name is James. I'm 26 years old, and I've been trying to carve out a life for myself, even if my family doesn't think much of it. It's always been that way. Really, ever since I was a kid, I felt like I didn't quite belong. Not in the dramatic, I must be adopted way, but more like I was an outsider in my own home. I grew up in a family that valued practicality above all else. My parents, particularly my mom, believed that life had a simple formula: work hard, earn money, and don't waste time on things that don't directly lead to a stable career. My dad was a little more easygoing on the surface, but deep down, he had the same rigid mindset. And my older brother, Mark, took after them completely, maybe even more than they realized. Mark was always the golden child. He did everything right: good grades, sports, a well-paying job straight out of college. He followed the blueprint my parents believed in, and they adored him for it. I, on the other hand, was the disappointment. Not because I was reckless or irresponsible. I never got into trouble, never made their lives difficult, but because I didn't fit their definition of success. I studied something they considered pointless. It wasn't theater or philosophy or something stereotypically dismissed. I actually chose a field that had real value. But since it wasn't traditional, since it didn't have a clear, straightforward career path, they saw it as a waste. They never outright stopped me from pursuing it, but they never supported me either. Every conversation was laced with subtle, and sometimes not so subtle, jabs about how I should have picked something more useful. For as long as I can remember, I had to prove myself in ways Mark never did. He was naturally respected in the family. I had to earn every ounce of approval, and even when I did something objectively good, it was met with a lukewarm, half-hearted response. I graduated with honors. No one cared. I landed my first real job in my field. My mom sighed and said, "Well, at least you're making something." Meanwhile, Mark would get showered with praise for the most basic things. It wasn't just about careers. It was everything. At family gatherings, I was the one whose jokes fell flat, whose stories were interrupted, whose thoughts were dismissed as soon as Mark or my parents had something more interesting to say. I can't even count how many times I sat at the dinner table, completely silent, because I knew no one cared what I had to say. And yet, despite all of this, I stayed connected. Not because I particularly wanted to, but because I felt like I had to. I still wanted to be a good son, a good brother. And, if I'm being completely honest, I still had that stupid hope, the hope that maybe one day something would change. That maybe, eventually, they'd see me as an equal. But things only got worse after college. I started making money, not a lot at first, but enough to get by, enough to be independent. And that's when things took an unexpected turn. My parents, who spent years acting like I was a disappointment, suddenly started coming to me for help. Not in a "we're struggling, please help us" way, but in a casual, almost entitled way. My mom would offhandedly mention bills that needed to be paid, expecting me to pick up the slack. My dad, who never once seemed to care about my financial situation before, suddenly started hinting that he could use some extra money for things. And Mark? Mark, who made plenty on his own, never seemed to be asked for anything. It was always me, the one with the useless career. The one who, just months before, they were still mocking for wasting time. At first, I helped because I felt obligated. They were my family, after all. But it didn't take long to realize the pattern. Every time I gave, they expected more. My mom started treating me like an extension of her income rather than an independent person. My dad would casually drop hints about how it was only fair for me to pitch in more. It wasn't about need, it was about control. I tried setting boundaries. I told them I couldn't always help, that I had my own expenses. The response? Guilt trips. Lectures about family responsibilities. Subtle and sometimes not so subtle. Comments about how Mark was so much more successful and how they wouldn't have to ask him because he had his life together. For years, I put up with it. I let the comments slide. I bit my tongue at the family gatherings where they treated me like an afterthought, and I kept helping, even when it hurt me financially. Because that's what family does, right? That's what I told myself, over and over again. And then, last weekend happened. My mom decided to host a big family dinner. Nothing unusual. She did this every couple of months, inviting over aunts, uncles, and cousins. I wasn't particularly looking forward to it, but I went. I always went. Because despite everything, I still wanted to believe I was part of this family. Dinner was the same as always. I was largely ignored unless someone wanted to make a joke at my expense. I had learned to tune it out by now, keeping my focus on my plate and nodding along when necessary. It was a survival tactic. If I reacted, it would only encourage them. But what I didn't know, what no one told me, was that Mark had set up his phone in the corner of the dining room, live streaming the entire thing. I didn't find out until the next day. I was scrolling through my phone when I saw a notification. Someone had tagged me in a post. Confused, I clicked on it. And that's when I saw it. A video. The entire family dinner, streamed for the world to see. At first, I thought it was just some harmless family content. Maybe a funny moment, maybe a random conversation. But then I started watching. And within the first few minutes, I felt my stomach drop. Because there it was. My mom, laughing as she called my degree completely useless. My dad chiming in, saying he still couldn't believe I was making a living off of it. Mark cracking jokes about how I'd probably end up crawling back to them one day, asking for real money. And the worst part? Everyone was laughing. Everyone. Not one person defended me. Not one person even hesitated. It wasn't just a couple of casual remarks. It was a full-blown roast session, all at my expense. And I just sat there, watching, listening to them mock me behind my back. I had put up with a lot over the years. But this was different. This was the moment something inside me finally snapped. I stared at the screen, my breath coming in short, uneven bursts. The laughter rang in my ears. My mom's voice, mocking. My dad's casual dismissal. Mark's smug tone. The distant sound of forks clinking against plates as the rest of my family chuckled along, enjoying the spectacle. I rewound the video. Once. Twice. Maybe I had misheard. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe. No. Every word was exactly what I thought it was. They weren't joking in the way families sometimes playfully tease each other. This wasn't lighthearted. This wasn't innocent. It was cruel. It was deliberate. And worst of all, it wasn't just one moment in the video. I skipped around, scrubbing through the footage, hoping to find a single moment where someone, anyone, stood up for me. A cousin, an aunt, an uncle. Someone to say, hey, that's not fair. But all I found was more the same. More jokes at my expense. More smirking, more laughter. At one point, my dad even made an offhand comment about how it was a good thing I was helping out financially, because at least that made me somewhat useful. And my mom, in between bites of food, actually said, if he was smart, he'd have studied something worthwhile in the first place. And then Mark, ever the perfect son, leaned back in his chair and muttered, yeah, but it's fine. He'll realize eventually. He can't play pretend forever. I couldn't even blink. Pretend? Pretend? I had been working tirelessly to make my career work. Struggling through setbacks, pushing through rejections, working long hours to build something of my own. And the whole time, they saw it as nothing more than me playing pretend? Something inside me burned. I had spent years, putting up with their constant put-downs. Enduring the little comments, the condescending tones, the forced smiles that never quite reached their eyes when I told them about something I was proud of. And through all of it, I had still been the one helping them. Paying for things when my mom conveniently forgot her credit card. Covering bills when my dad was short this month. Transferring money when my mom sighed about how things were just a little tight right now. And this was how they saw me. I locked my phone and placed it on the table, my hands shaking. For a long time, I just sat there, thinking, processing. And then, slowly, a thought started forming in my mind. I had always been the one to keep the peace, to let things slide, to swallow my pride and do what needed to be done because they're family. But maybe it was time to stop. I reached for my phone again, unlocking it with a swipe of my thumb. I scrolled through my recent transactions, my fingers tightening around the device as I looked at all the payments I had made in just the last few months. Rent money, grocery money, utility bills, little things here and there that weren't a big deal, but added up to thousands of dollars over time. Thousands. And not a single word of appreciation. Not a single ounce of respect. I exhaled sharply, my mind racing. They expected me to keep playing my role. To keep nodding and smiling and handing over my hard-earned money while they mocked me behind my back. But they were about to learn something. I wasn't playing pretend. And I wasn't their safety net anymore. I took a deep breath, my thumb hovering over my mom's contact. Calling her first made the most sense. She was the one who always asked for money. The one who guilt-tripped me into giving more than I could afford. And I knew her well enough to predict how this would go. First, feigned innocence. Then defensiveness. Then a full-blown guilt trip about how I was overreacting and taking things too seriously. But this time, I wasn't going to let her manipulate me. I tapped the call button. It rang. Once. Twice. Then she picked up. James, what's wrong? Straight to the point. No hello, no pleasantries. Just immediate concern, because she never got calls from me unless she needed something or I needed something. And since she hadn't asked for money in the last week, she probably assumed I was calling about a favor. I didn't waste time. I saw the video. There was a pause, a hesitation, a barely perceptible shift in her breathing. Then, in a carefully neutral tone, she asked, "What video?" I clenched my jaw. The one Mark posted. The live stream of family dinner. Silence. Then, a little laugh. Forced. Uneasy. Oh, that. Come on, James, it wasn't a big deal. Not a big deal. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. So you knew about it? She exhaled, irritated now. Of course I knew. Mark was just having a little fun. He does those streams all the time, you know. His friends love them. I'm sure they do, I said flatly. Especially when the whole family spends the night making fun of me. Oh, James, she sighed, her voice taking on that patronizing tone that made my skin crawl. You're being dramatic. Nobody was making fun of you. I let out a short, humorless laugh. Really? So when Dad called my career embarrassing, that wasn't making fun of me? When Mark said I was playing pretend, that was what support? She made a dismissive noise. You're taking it too seriously. It was just dinner conversation. We joke around. You know that. Joke around. That's what they always said. Every cruel comment, every jab, every casual insult, just a joke. Just harmless fun. I pressed my fingers against my temple, trying to stay calm. You do realize people could see that, right? Everyone. Strangers. My friends. My colleagues. Another pause. Then, a much more careful, measured response. Did someone say something? There it was. She didn't care that they'd humiliated me. She only cared if it had consequences. I closed my eyes, gripping the phone tighter. It doesn't matter if someone said something, Mom. What matters is that my own family spent an entire meal tearing me down, and you let it happen. She scoffed. Oh, please. You act like we sat around plotting ways to ruin your life. No one was thinking that hard, James. You're just sensitive. I exhaled through my nose, trying to keep my voice level. I've been helping you for years. I've covered bills, groceries, rent. I've given you money when I barely had enough for myself. And this is what I get in return. Oh, stop, she snapped. We're family. That's what family does. I let that hang in the air for a second. Then, slowly, I asked, what have you done for me, Mom? She went quiet. I pressed on. I mean it. What have you done for me? Because I can list everything I've done for you. But I can't think of a single thing you've done for me. James, she said, her voice sharp now. I raised you. I laughed, shaking my head. That's your job as a parent. That's not a favor you get to hold over my head. Silence. Then she sighed, as if I were being exhausting. Look, I don't have time for this. If you're going to sulk, do it on your own time. Just don't bring it up at dinner next week. I let out a breath. I won't. Good, she said, her voice lighter, like she thought she'd won. Because she didn't realize what I meant. I wasn't going to bring it up at dinner. Because there wouldn't be a next week. I was done. But first, I had one more call to make. I pulled up my dad's number and hit dial. The phone barely rang before my dad picked up. James. His voice was firm, like he already knew why I was calling and didn't want to waste time pretending otherwise. I could hear the faint sound of a TV in the background, some sports game playing. What do you want? I didn't dance around it. I saw the video. A pause. Then, in that same flat, unimpressed tone, he said, and I gritted my teeth. And you sat there, in front of the whole family, in front of the internet, and called my career embarrassing. Because it is, he shot back without hesitation. What do you want me to say, James? You could have been an engineer, a lawyer, hell, even a damn electrician, something useful. But instead, you're doing what? Whatever it is you do. I inhaled sharply through my nose, trying to stay calm. I run my own business. He made a dismissive sound. Sure, a business, if that's what you want to call it. That was the thing about my dad. He didn't just think I was a failure. He wanted me to be one. He had spent years acting like my work was some childish phase, something I'd grow out of when I came to my senses and got a real job. He ignored every success I had, brushed off every milestone like it was a fluke, a lucky break that wouldn't last. And yet, despite thinking I was so pathetic, he never had a problem taking my money. I tightened my grip on the phone. I've been helping you for years, Dad. Paying your bills. Covering things when you came up short. You knew that, and you still sat there and mocked me. Don't be dramatic, he scoffed. It was a joke. I felt something snap inside me. No, it wasn't. It was never a joke. None of it. You hate that I made something of myself without your help. You hate that I don't need you. And you really hate that you need me. His silence told me I'd hit a nerve. So I kept going. I'm done. No more money. No more help. You think I'm a joke? Fine. Go ahead and laugh. But you won't be laughing when the bills start piling up and I'm not there to bail you out. His tone turned cold. You'd really turn your back on your family over this? I let out a breath, shaking my head. You turned your back on me a long time ago. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, in a slow, warning tone, he said, You don't want to do this, James. I almost laughed. Even now, he thought he could intimidate me, bully me into falling back in line. But he didn't realize he had already lost. This conversation is over, I said simply. And before he could say another word, I hung up. I sat there for a moment, the weight of what I'd done settling in. The ties had been cut. For the first time in my life, I wasn't responsible for them. And for the first time in my life, I felt free. But I knew them. This wasn't over. They weren't going to let me go that easily. The next evening, just as the sun was dipping behind the skyline, I heard a knock at my door. The kind of knock that makes your stomach tighten because you know something's off. It wasn't a friendly tap or a casual visitor. It was more like an impatient, urgent thud, like whoever was on the other side had something to prove. I stood still for a moment, staring at the door. I already knew who it was. I didn't even need to check the peephole. I could feel the tension in the air, the anticipation building up like a storm. They weren't going to let this go. I could already picture their faces, the guilt tripping, the anger. They weren't used to being ignored, especially not by me. I had always been the one to give in, to swallow my frustration and let it slide. But not anymore. I opened the door. There they were, my mom, my dad, and even Mark, standing in front of my apartment, looking like they had just come from a funeral. My dad was frowning, arms crossed, looking like he'd just stepped off the set of some low-budget mob movie. My mom was trying to look casual, but I could see the tightness in her posture, the way her fingers twitched at her side. And Mark, he was just there, standing in the back, arms crossed too, trying to look tough but clearly uncomfortable with the situation. James, my dad started, his voice dripping with false calm. Can we talk? I didn't even try to hide the irritation in my voice. What do you want? Mom stepped forward, her expression softer than my dad's. We came here because we need to clear things up. This has gone too far. I raised an eyebrow. Really? You want to clear things up? After that video? After years of pretending like you don't rely on me, that I'm some kind of embarrassment to you? We didn't mean it like that, she said, holding up her hands, her voice all saccharine sweetness. It was just a joke, honey. You're taking this way too seriously. You're overreacting. I clenched my fists at my sides. Overreacting? No, I'm done. For years, I've been paying for your bills, making sure you're comfortable, and you're still mocking me, mocking my career, my life. And when I finally stand up for myself, you come knocking at my door like nothing happened. My dad cut in, his voice growing louder now, with a touch of that familiar venom. You're acting like we're the problem here. Maybe you're the one who's got it all wrong. Maybe it's you who needs to grow up and stop being so sensitive about everything. I could feel my heart rate pick up. You really don't get it, do you? For once in my life, I'm not going to let you walk all over me. I've been carrying you, and I'm done. Mark, who had stayed mostly silent up until now, chimed in, his tone snide and mocking. Oh, come on, James. Are you really going to act like you're some kind of hero? You're just trying to play the victim because we're calling you out. My blood boiled. The last few years, I'd been the one saving their asses, working myself into the ground while they lived comfortably off my back. And now Mark, who barely even had a job, was lecturing me? Don't talk to me, Mark, I snapped, stepping forward, the heat of anger rising in my chest. You don't have the right to say a damn thing. You've been riding on my coattails since the day you turned 18, and now you've got the nerve to act like I'm the one in the wrong? You're all just mad because I'm no longer letting you treat me like a personal ATM. My dad's eyes hardened, the anger finally surfacing. You're crossing a line, James. Do you really think you can just walk away from your family like this? You'll regret it. We've always been there for you, and now you think you can just cut us off. I took a step back, my voice getting louder. No, you've never been there for me. You've been there to take. That's it. You've never supported me, not once. Every single thing I've achieved, I've done by myself, and I'm done pretending like I owe you anything for it. You don't get to humiliate me and then act like the victim when I finally stand up for myself. Mark started to speak again, but my dad held up a hand to silence him. He was glaring at me now, his eyes full of anger and something else I couldn't quite place. Something dangerous. You really think you can just cut us off, James? Fine. Go ahead. But don't think for a second that we won't find a way to make you pay for this. That hit me like a slap to the face. Make me pay? You really think you have that power over me anymore? I could feel the tension in the air, thick and suffocating. My mom was looking between us, her hands trembling slightly, but she didn't speak. It was like everyone had just collectively realized that things had gone too far, and they didn't know how to pull it back. I didn't wait for them to say anything else. I'm done. Don't come back here. Don't call me. Don't ask for anything. I'm not your bank anymore, and I'm not your punching bag. Get out of my life. For a moment, no one moved. It was like time itself had frozen, and the only sound was the faint hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. Then, slowly, my dad shook his head. You'll regret this, James. But I didn't care anymore. Goodbye, I said firmly, closing the door in their faces. As soon as the door clicked shut, the silence in my apartment was almost deafening. It felt like a weight had been lifted from my chest, like I could finally breathe without the constant pressure of their expectations and manipulations hanging over me. For the first time in years, I felt like I was in control of my own life. Since that night, I haven't heard from any of them. I blocked their numbers, deleted their emails, and made it clear to a few mutual acquaintances that I wanted nothing to do with them. But I know they're still out there, plotting something, waiting for me to crack and reach out. Maybe they'll come knocking again, maybe not. I've been working even harder now, focusing on my business, which has been growing steadily without all the toxic noise. I don't feel guilty anymore when I look at my bank account or at my achievements. But every now and then, I wonder if I did the right thing, if I'm being too harsh, too unforgiving. Anyway, I've made my peace with it. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. Was I wrong to cut them off completely? Do you think I should have tried to work things out? What would you have done in my shoes? Let me know in the comments.